Hey everyone, so it's Siobhán and I'm back with my next fuller browed beauties tutorial, and this time it's going to be, or it is, inspired by the beautiful Keira Knightley. So it's a bit of a break from the strong lips I was doing in the last couple of tutorials in the series, because Keira really tends to have this beautiful signature strong metallic smoky eye that she looks amazing in, and you know, really shows off her beautiful deep brown eyes, which I really wanted to give a go. And it's very season appropriate as well, because she uses those beautiful deep autumnal rich kind of, you know, warm browns, which are absolutely fab on her. So this is what this is, and just watch on for the tutorial. So since it's getting really cold here and I can really feel the cold at the moment, I definitely need to kind of up my skin preparation when it comes to doing makeup, because my skin can really dry out during the winter. It's not just the cold outside, it's me plonking my backside down in front of any heat I can get indoors, so it really dehydrates my skin. And I just really need to make sure that I am hydrating my skin to help counteract that dryness. And also my lips dry out like no one's business as well. So first of all, just to make sure my lips were nice and smooth, because they were really dry and cracked earlier on, I used this Catrice lip peeling. Now basically all it is a sugar scrub, so you can make your own by just mixing a little bit of sugar in with either like coconut oil or any kind of oil that you can just lightly scrub along your lips, or even mix it in with a bit of a more kind of fluid lip conditioner or something like that. It helps scrub off any of the dead skin, and it'll help soften it as well because of the oil or the conditioner, and then just wipe it off and then put on loads of conditioner. So that's basically what I did, but I used my Catrice one. This was limited edition, but if anyone does know of any other companies that do similar ones, let me know, because I'd love to know for when this runs out. Then for my skin, I definitely like to use a serum as well as a moisturiser throughout the colder months. So I used my Vichy Idealia Life Serum and I let that sink in, and then I went over with my Clinique Super Defense SPF 25. So to start off with the eyes, I'm going to pop a little bit of a concealer just around the eye area. I'm going to use my Pro Longwear by MAC, and I'm going to use a synthetic brush then to just lightly put that all around the contours of the eyes. So just to take away the initial dark shadow and just kind of buff it on with the brush, and then I like to tap it in with the finger afterwards. The heat of the fingertips helps to melt it into the skin. And I do like to put this kind of all over the eye a little bit. There's no need if you're using like paint pots and stuff, but it's a good tip if you're not using paint pots or like other eye primers to use the Pro Longwear concealer as your primer, because it does set like it does form a film over the skin, so it's a great base. Now for the first base layer under the eyeshadow, if you have oily lids, I would suggest using something that sets to form like a barrier over the lids that'll help stop the oil coming through messing with the eyeshadow, which causes those creases. Something good to use would be like a MAC paint pot. This is Eclair, which was a limited edition one, but it's very similar to Constructivist paint pot. They're almost the same thing, so it's just a lovely rich brown. Or if you can't get to MAC, but you can get to a department store or drugstore rather, try get something like this, which is the Maybelline Colour Tattoo 24 Hour, or just, you know, that's another option. It's a really good one that's kind of sets on the skin. Because I don't have particularly oily lids and I already have a little bit of that Pro Longwear concealer over my lids, I'm actually going to go in with this guy here, so one of these guys here. This is my Kryolan Shimmering Vision Interference palette. So it's basically kind of like the Flash palette by Makeup Forever, but it's, you know, it's Kryolan. This was actually around before the Makeup Forever version, and I'm going to go into this gorgeous golden colour here, and I'm just going to use my finger and apply that to the moving part of my lid. And you will have more playtime with something like this than you would with a paint pot, because this doesn't quite set as hard as those. That's why I would suggest a paint pot if you have oily lids, because this might kind of migrate a little bit over any oiliness. And I'm just going to go in with a fluffy blending brush and just buff out the edge. And I'm going to go back into the same gold cream eyeshadow, and using a smaller brush, I'm just going to apply a little bit underneath my lower lid, or my lower lash line. So that's one thing you always see Keira do, is she heavily defines her lower lashes. She has quite a heavy lid, as in you don't see as much of the moving part. Not that she has a huge amount of lid space, but it just means, you know, when you don't have a huge amount of space above your top lash line, it means you can definitely play up your lower lash line. So she also brings her colour quite low down underneath the eye, so you can get a little bit onto your blending brush and then just blend it down. Now next I'm going to go in with my beloved Bourjois Ombre Paupier number 8, which I've shown a million times before, and it's my favourite highlight for my brow, and just apply that underneath the arch area. I'll deal with the inner corner highlight in a minute, but for the main lid colours I'm going to use this gorgeous palette by Me. This is Goddess Eyes, which is the quad number 2. I'm going to use that gold. I just think it's so pretty. And just pack that over the Kryolan cream eyeshadow. Again, I'm only really concentrating this on the moving part of the lid. And I'm just kind of packing it on in place as well to really just get the colour on. Get that colour payoff. Now before I go on with my eyeshadow, I'm actually going to pop loads of eyeliner in on my waterlines because Keira is the eyeliner queen, and I don't mean necessarily like really fancy flicky Cleopatra-y eyes. She just wears a lot of kohl eyeliner in on her waterline. So I'm just going to go in with a black kohl pencil and just tight line as well, which is doing that top waterline. Now for underneath the lower lash line, I want to use something a little bit darker, so I'm going to use this Max Factor Dip in Eyeshadow Max Effect Dip in Eyeshadow. This is in the colour, no, it's number 2, Bronzed Glow. So this is just a really lovely, again, bronzy brown eyeshadow. And what I love about this is the applicator. It comes with that spongy tipped applicator, which is really handy for doing smaller areas or for doing a precise area. It's basically just a loose eyeshadow, like eyeshadow dust, but it's quite nice actually. So you can really see it gives that lovely intensity underneath the eye. And if you're worried about using eyeshadow underneath the eyes and it kind of maybe enhancing little lines or whatever, just stick with something that's a little bit more on the matte side. Don't go with anything too shiny or too shimmery. A little bit of shimmer is okay, it's just anything that has glitter particles or that's very, very light reflective might show off the lines a bit too much. And then I'm just going to use that same dip in eyeshadow again, and you can literally draw in the shape you want to do with it, but I'm just going to kind of do that outer V and then go back into my blending brush. Put a little bit there above the crease. Not too crazy though, because she doesn't have, like I said, the most eye space in the world, so she doesn't necessarily bring it up very, very high. Now she often just leaves it on the lower lash or on the lower lid, where she wouldn't even go above the lid really much at all. So you could do that if you don't have, you know, as much space to play around with. Just keep it on the moving part of the lid and buff it ever so slightly beyond it. You don't need to go as high up onto the brow bone as I do. And then I'm going to go back into my highlight just to clean up in case I went over it a bit too much. And then I'm going to use that colour from the Me palette, the whitey one. It's a white gold colour, so it gives a really beautiful kind of yellow gold reflection. I'm going to pop that just there onto the inner corner. And just drag it over onto your tear duct area a tiny bit. Kind of lightly blend it up into the rest of the eyes, or eyeshadow rather. And to add a little bit more intensity around the eye, I'm going to go into this dark brown eyeshadow. It's from my Inglot palette, or one of my Inglot palettes, but I will just leave the number on my blog as usual in the products list. And I'm going to use an angled brush. Any angled brush will do. This one is by Stone Lace, and just press that right in against the lashes on the lower lash line to begin with. And this just adds a lovely intensity around the eye. And I'm also going to apply a little bit to the top lash line, mainly just on the outer half. Keira sometimes wears quite a lot of kind of smudged eyeliner, or she'll just wear no eyeliner on the top lash line and just have her lashes really defined. So I'm just going to go a little bit in between and have a little bit of intensity and darkness just there in the top half. And then I'm going to apply plenty of mascara, so I'm going to use my Clumptify by False Lash Effect mascara, which is a Max Factor one. Feel free to use eyelashes of course, because Keira would often wear them on the red carpet. But they're definitely not necessarily, if you have a decent set of lashes on you at all, there's no need for false lashes. But if you really don't feel confident in your natural lashes, go ahead and pop on some false lashes. And I'm going to make sure I pop plenty on the bottom lashes as well, which is something I often see Keira do or have done by her makeup artist. So when it comes to Keira's eyebrows, of course they're quite a statement feature. They're always beautifully groomed and they look quite lovely and full naturally, but if you really look at them, they're not that dense. They're nowhere near as dense as maybe how Cara Delevingne or Lily Collins even does hers, like the way I would have filled in mine for those last ones. You can almost see every single strand of hair in Keira's eyebrows, so it's not like she covers them over with loads of powder. I think it's more maybe a little bit of pencil if she does need filling them in, but I think it's probably just more gel because she has that shape there already. So I'm just going to use a eyebrow pencil and then just start to mimic the hairs by drawing little hair-like lines up underneath where you want to fill it in. If you want, you can lightly draw a few little lines throughout the eyebrows as well. Don't totally fill them in, but just so that there's not too much of a difference in shade. And then to finish off the eyebrows, I'll just get rid of the fringe for the minute, and I'm going to use a clear gel and then brush them, just kind of brush them up at an angle. Whatever gel she uses, it seems to be really good because it almost looks like they are just absolutely frozen in place. But you want to kind of be able to see the hair lines, like you want to see the natural hairs. Right, so now for the skin, I'm going to start off by applying my primer. So I obviously already moisturised earlier on after my primer, or after my serum, but I want to put on a primer because Keira doesn't have the best skin. I think she goes through bouts of it not being great and then bouts of it being okay, but she often, I think she still suffers from some adult acne, and definitely hormonal breakouts down around her chin, but I've also seen her with quite a bumpy forehead as well. So I think she would need slightly more, you know, fuller coverage foundation. And I'm going to give my Illamasqua Skin Base another go. I've used it a couple of times and I think I kind of give up on it a little bit because I haven't worked with it enough to really figure out how to work it for my own skin. But I mean, it has won awards now and I'm determined to make it work, or to kind of figure out maybe why it wouldn't work so well on my skin. So I actually put in an order for the Illamasqua Skin, is it the Hydra Veil yesterday, because of the discount, the extra 10% discount they're offering for people who are signed up already for their discount. So I'm really looking forward to getting that. So I'm going to use the Skin Base number 3. I'm going to use very little of this. I think I may have been using too much of it before, and I'm going to just work in a little area at a time. I'm going to use this Zoeva brush, which is this face shaper brush. Right. So just work that around the nose. Bit of a shake before I apply it onto the back of my hand, and just use this tiniest bit. And just reapply in any few little areas. I will use a concealer now in a sec though. Before I go on now, I'm just going to apply a little bit of a lip primer to my lips, so that it'll be set by the time I get to them. And now I'm going to go back into my Pro Longwear Concealer. I put out way too much there, but I'm just going to reapply that in the darkest areas underneath the eye and try and avoid going right up to the eyeshadow. And I'm going to use a little bit of the same concealer just down the centre of my nose where I would have some visible freckles. For the blemishy areas, I'm going to use a slightly different concealer. Obviously you don't need to use 2 different concealers, but I nearly always use 2 different concealers anyhow, for under the eye and for the face. Just a creamier concealer and something that's a bit more yellow based to counteract any redness. I'm going to set the whole thing with powder, so I'm just going to use my Mineralized Skin Finish by MAC because it's beside me. And use my favourite powder blush, which is the Blusher Brush by Real Techniques. Now for her skin, Keira almost seems to have lovely kind of warm hues that she uses on her cheeks, but more so almost as a contour rather than on the apple of the cheeks. So I'm going to use this Margin Blusher by MAC on the lower side of my cheeks, so kind of as a contour, and tap off any excess because it is quite a strong blusher. As I've mentioned before, I'm very pale skin. I always like to have the face powder beside me to go over the blusher because it just helps melt it back into the skin so it's not so harsh looking, particularly if it just looks very strong. So just like that, and that just doesn't look too strong or as intense as it was without the powder over it. Then because she has the thinnest little nose in the world, she has maybe a little bit of a bump when you look at it straight on here, but the tip of her nose is very thin. I'm going to do a tiny bit of contouring. I'm just going to dip my brush into this slightly darker, well, it's a darker powder by Bourjois. It's their Healthy Balance Unifying Powder number 55 Dark Beige, but I like to use powders sometimes rather than bronzers to contour because they're more of a natural skin colour, where some bronzers can just be too red. So for the lips I'm going to use Subculture by MAC because this has a slightly kind of a peachy pink hue to it. Keira has very, very pouty lips, naturally I think. I don't know, are they natural or if she's had work done, but they are very pouty anyhow. So if you want, you could overline your top lip a little bit. And I'm going to go in with a matte nude lipstick. This one was from one of the collections earlier on during the year with MAC. I'm not sure what it's called. It's called Altered Beige, but any nude will do. I'll leave dupes to this on my blog. And I'm not going to add a gloss. I'm just going to leave it as it is. And then just to finish everything off, I'm going to go into that highlighter that I used earlier on in my eyes. Apply a little bit of that to the cheekbones. She often has a beautiful highlight. So there you have it. There's the Keira Knightley inspired kind of smoky eye look with, of course, her beautiful brows as a focus as usual. And there will be pictures and the full product list on my blog, so you can check that out at letzmakeup.com. The links will be below. And in the meantime, I'll chat to you all really soon in my next video. So take care, guys. Slán!